Before you even ask, yes, it is the year of our great lord Markiplier in space, 2022, and I'm making a video about Five Nights at Freddy's. And you may ask, Mr. Robot, when you made your first retrospective video, you said you were going to focus on games you played as a kid that were critical darlings, so why are you reviewing a game that came out when you were already in college, and that has never really been beloved in a critical sense? Well, that is a good question, and one I want to answer in this video. Why is Five Nights at Freddy's worth remembering and still talking about? What, if any, impacts has it had on the culture of horror games? And most importantly, I think, is the first Five Nights at Freddy's as good as most people remember? And was it even a good game in a general sense to begin with? So join me, if you will, as we tackle those questions. I am the Cardboard Robot, and this is Five Nights at Freddy's, a retrospective. Guys, do we really have to do this? Do we really need to do this? We all know what FNAF is, right? We all get it. We all know the Fazbear. Okay, fine. For the uninitiated, Five Nights at Freddy's, otherwise known as FNAF for short, is an indie survival jump scare horror game created by Scott Cawthon, otherwise known as... Fuck you, Elijah. God damn it, I didn't see that till now. Is an indie survival jump scare horror game created by Scott Cawthon, otherwise known as MatPat. Yes, they are the same person. No, I will not elaborate any further. The game was released in 2014. In it, you play an overnight security guard working at a Chuck E. Cheese-style restaurant called Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. The issue is, the animatronics at the restaurant begin to move on their own at night. And if they see you, they will kill you by stuffing you inside a small animatronic suit filled with jagged metal and steel crossbars. You have a small office that has doors that need power to close, and you only have a limited amount of power to close them. Which I, to this day, do not understand how you have doors that take power to keep closed, but don't think about it. Either way, you must use your wits and your doors to keep the animatronics at bay. The only other tool you have at your disposal is your security camera. This allows you to keep eyes on the Fazbear bunch as they slowly make their way towards you. If you manage your resources well, keep your wits about you, and keep an eye on those pesky metal animals, you can make it to the end of your shift at 6 AM and live to work another day. Throughout the titular Five Nights, Freddy and friends will get faster and more aggressive, and make the nights exponentially harder, forcing you to use more of your resources to deal with them. With a little bit of skill and luck, though, you'll make it through the week and come home with your life and a sweet $120 to show for it. Oh, were you expecting more? No, that's it. That's the game. You look at a camera, you close doors, if you fail to do those things well enough, you get jump scared and you die. A super simple concept for a super simple and relatively small game. So, what did people think of it? FNAF is the poster child for having what I call the golden combination. What is the golden combination? Well, it's a combination of at least 3 out of 4 attributes that a game can have that cause a large portion of the 12 to 15 age range to latch onto it like it was a golden idol and begin to define their entire existence around it. Think FNAF, Minecraft, Undertale, Among Us, most games with giant internet fandoms. So, what are these attributes that these types of games share? Well, I'm glad you asked. 1. The game has to be cheap. $20 at launch, at max. This allows a majority of kids in that age range to be able to get their hands on it pretty easily. It's way easier to convince your parents to buy you a $15 game than it is a $65 one. 2. Simplicity. The game has to be simple. Now that sounds like an insult almost, but I don't mean a game has to be easy. Only the concept has to be simple. I wouldn't necessarily consider games like FNAF or Undertale to be easy, but at their core, they're based on a really simple and approachable concept. 3. Lore. And the lack of it. Games like this do not need lore. They need the promise of lore, maybe. Nothing is to be explained outright. There's hints or breadcrumbs of something that might be lore. Hey, what's the bite of 87? What is Golden Freddy? Who knows? But we'll speculate it forever. Golden combination games need these fishhooks in order to keep kids super invested into the brand, and it also helps them feel like they're in on some sort of secret, which really cements them into a community. 4 is the edge. Just a little edge, though. Not enough that their parents will get mad at them if they see them playing, but certainly enough that it captures the counterculture instincts of a 12-year-old on the internet. You know what's cool? Murderous Chuck E. Cheese, zombies that come in the night and stalk you through caves, creepy sus imposters that shoot you in the back of the head when you're alone. With that in mind, I think it's imperative to point out that FNAF contained all 4 of the attributes I've attributed to the golden combination. So, the game fucking exploded. Like, I don't think I can even talk about how big this game got. Officially, on game sites and reviewers, it got around like 7 out of 10 and higher ratings, pretty much across the board. But a huge amount of support led to this enormous fan base that amassed around this game even before it launched officially, as the game was being hyped up, as the demo was being played by, you know, some YouTubers and streamers, just a handful of smaller people, no one that big, just a few noted names of the horror community, a few of which you maybe might recognize.
Ah, fuck! No! Oh, yeah! Fucking fuck! I tried to push it! Oh my god!
A ton of YouTube videos, fan art, guides, and fan games. A shitload of fan games made by entire teams of fans who just really loved FNAF, and the growth of a giant internet community. So it's probably no shock to you that this led into 12 more games, almost all of which were still made by Scott Cawthorne himself, until he retired after getting himself caught up and found out in a little political scandal that lost him the favor of Twitter and the giant group that was the LGBT youth that made up a huge part of his product base. Nevertheless, the success and explosive praise was so huge and so immediate that Scott released the game's sequel less than 3 months after the original came out. So now comes the point where we start to retrospectively look at FNAF and talk a little bit about the counterpoint to all this wild popularity. Like I said, the golden combination is perfectly targeted for kids aged 12 to 15, and it works like a charm. That comes with a caveat, because people above that age range will immediately decide that the game is absolutely garbage because everything young teenagers like is garbage because they're dumb babies. We see this backlash all the time, especially us who survived the overwhelming snobbish elitism that came with being in the internet in the late 2000s and early 2010s, especially towards things targeted towards women in that age range, but really across the board. I know so many people who hate things aimed towards that age range who have not interacted with the media whatsoever, but they'll swear it was the worst, most garbage baby shit on the planet. And I'll be honest, I was in that camp when FNAF came out. I was in college when the game came out, and I was so above it. Stupid game that stupid Tumblr and Twitter kids liked, but not me. I was a grown-up. I didn't actually play it until years after it came out, of course, and God forbid I told any of my friends that I did. But here's the thing, I kinda liked it when I played it. One thing about FNAF that's good to keep in mind is that a lot of people blame it for popularizing the jump scare genre, which A, isn't even true. Hell, the genre was even arguably pretty overused and stale by 2014. Amnesia came out 4 years ago. Slender and the 8 Pages released in 2012 and was a huge hit across the horror communities of the internet. Hey, there's that golden combination thing again. Outlast had come out just a few weeks before, and hell, PT came out less than a week after FNAF was officially released. This is, by the way, not a knock or praise of the style of genre or the games listed. B, the way FNAF uses jump scares is actually really brilliant in a lot of ways, and let me explain. Firstly, let's get this out of the way. Jump scares in general are not scary. They may be startling, but startling isn't fear. So a horror game that relies solely on jump scares for spooks must be pretty lame and lazy, right? In FNAF's case, I don't think so, because the fear in FNAF doesn't really come from the jump scares themselves. The game is a masterclass on anticipation. The fear comes from the waiting, from the helplessness, from the inability to do really anything to make your situation better. You can keep track of the animatronics and shut the doors at the right time, sure, but that's defensive. It doesn't actually make your situation better. The animatronics are still out there. They are still coming for you. All you've done is delay them, and what's worse, now you have even less power. You're actually in a worse position. Jump scares aren't scary. Loud noises aren't scary. What is scary is being trapped and totally helpless against a group of monsters that there is no way for you to fight back against once they get you. What is scary is being completely alone with nothing to keep you company except the cameras, the doors, and the white noise of a table fan whirling in the background. This is what I think makes the scene that occurs when you run out of power so successful, because at the very end, when you've run out of power and the very little things you had as safeguards are gone, even the noise of the fan that has become a comfort is gone. There is nothing. No lights. Dead silence. And then the happy face of Freddy. At that moment, live or die, everything is out of your control. There is nothing you can do to alter the outcome. Either you get lucky and you reach the time limit, or you die. There's no strategy, no plan. You are all alone, sitting in the dark with a creature that has no sympathy, no fear, no emotion, no logic. It cannot be bargained with. It cannot be reasoned to. It is here to kill you. And that's all. Then a spoopy jump scare happens and Freddy goes... So you see here, the scare doesn't come from the jump scare itself. Quite the opposite, really. The jump scare actually ends up being a relief. It's over after you get jump scared. No more anxiety, no more panic, no more fighting for your life. It's just done. In a lot of senses, Five Nights at Freddy's is not that impressive of a game, even by the standard of the time it was released. Never mind in 2022. It's not very long at all, it's not that complex gameplay-wise, it's not technically impressive, and once you know the tricks of the AI, it's really extremely easy to cheese. But everything it does extremely well, especially in the first playthrough. It's simply an anxiety simulator. It plays fine, nothing is overwhelmingly janky or unpolished, the concept is good, and the idea of scary animatronics is a fine one for a horror game. I really love that beating the game unlocks an extra secret mode, and beating that unlocks an even more extra secret double secret mode. I like the Easter eggs hidden throughout that, like we talked about before, hint at the idea of deeper lore. I think the environment and the atmosphere is creepy and masterfully designed. I also think the gameplay itself is deceptively smart, even if it can't surprise you anymore after you've learned the tricks of how to handle the animatronics. And here's even the thing about that though. The game doesn't tell you exactly what those tricks are. The phone guy who does the little tutorials at the beginning of the night, he gives you the basics and there's a few pointers, sure, but the game never reveals its own hand. Further still, there are parts where the phone guy just gives you hints and tricks that are straight up lies. He straight up lies to you about parts of the game mechanics. Everything the player learns to survive, they will have to learn themselves through trial and error. So, in conclusion, I think this little indie horror game really holds up for what it is, and while it's not exactly the type of horror game I personally enjoy, I think a lot of the dev decisions were really smart. Looking back, I think this game deserves a lot of the scores it got back then, and I think now I'd still agree with a lot of them. I'd give FNAF a solid 6.8 out of 10. For what it is, I think a lot of thought and craft went into this game, and I think it really shows. Hey, a real big thanks to everyone who stuck through all the way to the end of the video. If you liked this video, be sure to give this video a like and subscribe to the channel, or else Freddy Fazbear will come to your house. If you want to see more of my content, you can also come check me out live on Twitch. I stream there pretty regularly. You can also join the Cardboard Nation, our Discord server. Both those links are in the description. Thank you again for watching.